freedom,
family,
world unity.
All these things and more will be discussed on this podcast.
Real stories, real people, real debates. On this podcast, we like to express our freedoms and talk about anything and everything goes.
Like freedom, family is important to us, and anybody that is listening, watching, or coming on the show as a guest star are all considered part of the greatest family to ever bless the solar system, the human race. No matter who you are, where you come from, you will always have a voice here on this podcast.
We like to flex our First Amendment, where all speeches and opinions are accepted for the right of freedom of speech. We have a saying we like to live by. Live life with eyes wide open. Being open-minded leads to true understanding of the world as it really is. Please, come, join us, and enjoy this experience as we embark on this journey of truth as we dismantle the subjective truth. I'm your host, Nick.
And I'm your co-host, Victoria.
And you're experiencing High Consciousness.
Disclaimer. Any and all information on topics presented are to the best of all who is present in each episode's knowledge. The goal of this podcast is to bring people together and set the example we all wish to see in our everyday lives. Whether it's home life, education, politics, history, business, etc. Any and all subjects can and will be talked and peacefully debated about on this podcast. On debate episodes, there will be a set rules of debate that hosts and guests alike must follow. We ask that you, the audience, like we ask of our guests, in the comments to please try to keep the language as clean as possible. We are a podcast for entertainment as well as educational purposes. Here we are all equal no matter what race, age, or gender. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
Hi, y'all.
And welcome back to another episode of
High Consciousness. I'm your host, Nick.
And I'm your co-host, Victoria, and we are High Consciousness. Welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of High Consciousness. Today is Thursday, so we'll be going over America, a narrative history. And today we have a guest, our friend Tyler. Give him a round of applause, everybody. So, a little recap on last Thursday's episode. So we talked a lot about how...
by the way, y'all, if you hear a lot of been going around, we're getting our roof done, so that's what the noise is in the background that y'all hearing.
Yeah, we're getting our roof done, so yeah, just don't mind all the bang, bang, bang.
But anyway, as our co-host story, recaps on...
That was perfect. I was like...
Let's continue on with the recap of last week's episode about the Spanish Reformation of religion.
Mm-hmm. So there was a little further on the Spanish explorations, and not only with the explorations, but along came a lot of the separation of the different sects of the Catholicism religion. And so we had issues where just a hundred years prior, there was a conflict where there was two popes that split Catholicism pretty hard, where we had the Pope in Rome and we had the Pope in France. And then, the whole Pope schism that we went over in that episode. And out of that schism came Lutheranism and
it's like
the
six
Amish
others.
And
the Dunkers,
the
Familites, and the
Schwenkfelders.
Yeah, that's what it was.
The
Schwenkfelders.
The one that made me giggle so much. We see so many of those different sects of the same religion start to branch off and be created, which kind of, like, in my opinion, is, like, kind of confusing everybody. About, like...
interpretations of the different sects of the same religion. It's weird because it's the same religion but different interpretations.
And it's all due and boils down to perspective. It's, this leader believes in this, so, and the people like this idea, so this is what they're going to choose to believe in, and then vice versa with the other guy. And then, everybody has their own different perspective of how they think or feel that, God or, the source of everything, the creator should be. Or maybe that there's two creators, or that the one creator is a divine feminine and a divine masculine at the same time, or maybe they're two different things. Whatever. It all boiled down to perspectives.
And it also boiled down to the fact on how the church at that time was corrupted, because why else would Martin Luther put down that 95-word letter?
The 95 letter thesis
like on the church's door. Therefore, because his reason was that damned men could still be repent and go to heaven as long as they have faith in God.
Because good works alone don't get you into heaven.
Mm-hmm. Any input on what do you say to that, Tyler?
Well, I don't really know too much about the history of the Lutheran Church or anything like that, so I don't really have much input on that in regards to what we're talking about, but a lot of the different faiths out there follow, like you were saying, they follow the same
branch, like the same
branch of the same religion, but they all have different interpretations for some odd reason. Like they should all really just come together and under one unit.
But the problem is that, but I believe that the reason why I think the reason why they don't do that is because it's like a what's the word I'm looking for, not uncooperative, a dysfunctional family. Dysfunctional family. Where
Dysfunctional family.
Yeah, that's pretty much in a sense where they can be together, but they can't be together for too long, or else someone's feelings is gonna get hurt. So, then from that perspective, that's where that's why I kind of look at it as too, as a one big humongous dysfunctional family.
As the explorations had, expanded, the more that, we had different perspectives on the same religion, and the more that religion branched off.
But that's one of the beauties
and I think that had probably a lot to do with the people that they encountered that, like for instance, Native Americans over here, they influenced some of our forefathers and some of the early colonists, like, oh yeah, we have the same idea, of God. It's just called the Great Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's like the similarities, but anyways, we shall continue on with our readings. I'll be the reader today, and we will start by reading on the Reformation in England. In England, the Reformation, like so many other things, followed a unique course. The Church of England, or the Anglican Church, took form through a gradual process of Calvinizing
You're putting way too much words in your mouth.
I am.
Calvinizing.
English Catholicism. Rejection of papal authority came about at first. However, for purely political reasons, Henry VIII, who ruled through 1509 through 1547, the second of the Tudor dynasty, had in fact won from the Pope the title of Defender of the Faith for his defense of the Seven Sacraments. That was written in 1521. A fusion of Luther's idea, but Henry's marriage to Catherine of Aragon had produced no male heir, and for that reason he required an annulment.
Aragon, what?
Yeah, right here. Catherine of Aragon.
Aragon.
That's Aragon.
I'll be
That's
there.
Aragon. I mean, if I watch read and watch Lord of the Rings, that's Aragon, right?
Yup, that's Aragon.
Okay, or Aragon. However, I guess dialect you want to put it as, because people say words differently. Mm-hmm. So, whatever dialect you want to go with. For that reason, he required an annulment. In the past, popes have found ways to accommodate such requests. But Catherine was the aunt of Charles V, King of Spain and Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, whose support was vital to the Church's cause of the continent. So the Pope refused. Unwilling to accept the rebuff, Henry severed the connection with Rome, named a new Archbishop of Canterbury, who granted the annulment and married the lively Anne Boleyn. And she, in one of history's great ironicies, presented him not with the male heir he sought, but a daughter, who, as Elizabeth I, would reign from 1558 to 1603, over one of England's greatest eras.
So, Because the Pope of Rome wouldn't let Henry VIII divorce his current wife that couldn't bear him any heirs.
Mm-hmm.
But he went and anointed his own Pope of England and been like, yo, anoint my other marriage and, let my divorce go through so that I can have... Wow, so does that mean that, in a sense... And I mean no offense, this is just logical sense when you think about, how they looked at things back in those days.
I mean,
technically, that makes Queen Elizabeth, if the Pope of, New Europe or whatever, at the time, the Pope of Canterbury, didn't do what he wanted him to do, then Queen Elizabeth would have been a bastard child, a child out of wedlock, because back in those days, the Church of Rome didn't allow you to marry twice.
Well, you also gotta realize, I believe it was, which king was it? And I think it was France that had like eight wives, and none of his 8 wives could bear a male heir, and they would thought it was the female's problem. But as history finds out, it was actually his problem, because of how the chromosome gene is shipped out. It was something like that. I remember being taught that in school. Well, it was something to do with with science, where like it's the male who gets to choose what the gender of the child is. It's not the female's womb. It's actually the sperm. Look it up. Seriously, look it up.
Do what?
Look up the king who had 8 wives to try to have a male heir, and that's in history. That's actually real.
Okay.
I feel like I remember this from school too.
Right. That sounds familiar, does it not? Because that's when we learned that like males are the ones that choose the body, that choose the gender of the child. We don't actually get a choice. It's just how that science works. Henry VIII. Yep. So it was Henry VIII. Disposing of what? Yep. And so it was King Henry.
Fathered 3 legitimate children: Mary the First, Mary the First, as in no. Wait. Wait a minute.
Yep. The dates run through. That's King.
So, in the show Reign, they're not cousins. They're sisters?
Yes.
No wonder why Mary Queen of Scots was such a big threat. Not just because, yes, they were related through the cousin. No, they were sisters. This is where... Oh, boy. Okay. I'm done having my little realization. Oh, wow. Okay, so because of one man, we had all this conquest over the fight for the throne, Game of Thrones. Oh, boy.
Yep.
Ooh.
All because he wanted a true heir to the throne, a male heir. Tisk. Man can be so greedy, can we?
So that's why Mary Queen of Scots was sent away to go live with the Medici family.
Now, continuing on with Queen Elizabeth. Elizabeth could not be a Catholic, for in the Catholic view, she was illegitimate. During her reign,
that's true.
Therefore, the Church of England became Protestant. But in its own way, the structure of organization, the bishops and archbishop remained much the same, but the doctrine and practice changed. The Latin Liturgy became with some changes, the English Book of Common Prayer. The cult of saints was dropped, and the clergy were permitted to marry. The 39 Articles of Faith, prepared by a committee of bishops and announced in 1571, defined the Anglican Creed in Protestant terms. Through sometimes evasively, for the sake of unity, the Elizabethan settlement allowed some latitude in theology and other matters, but this did not satisfy all. The Escapades, on the other hand,
The what? Escapade.
The Escapade, on the other hand, tried to enforce the letter of the law, stressing traditional practice. Many others, however, especially those under Calvinist influence from the continent, wished to purify the church so that it more nearly fit their views of biblical authority. Some of these Puritans would later despair of the efforts to reform the Anglican Church and would leave England to build their own churches in America. Therefore, they went on the Mayflower. Now, going away from England, we're now going to see the challenges to the Spanish Empire during this time. Because like we said, during this time frame, Spain has pretty much taken control of most of America, especially in the central and southern parts of America. Challenges to the Spanish Empire. The Spanish monopoly of New World colonies remained intact throughout the 16th century, but not without challenge. From national rivals, spurred now by the emotional unleashed by the Protestant Reformation. The French were the first to pose a serious challenge, and Huguenots, aka Protestant seamen, from the great port of France promised to build France in a major sea power. Spanish treasure ships from the New World held out a tempting lure to French connoisseurs, and at least as early as 1524, one of them was plundered off the Azores by a French privateer. In 1524, Francis I sent an Italian named Giovanni Da Varrazzaro. We all know who that is. He was the one that found the Cape Fear in North Carolina. We learned about him.
Giovanni De Varrazzaro.
Yeah, Verrazzano. In search of a passage to Asia, sighting land, probably at Cape Fear, North Carolina, Verrazzano ranged along the coast as far north as Maine.
Hey, North Carolina! Woohoo!
On the view, he viewed Pimlico Sound across the North Carolina's Outer Banks, and beguiled by hope mistook it for the Pacific Ocean. On a second voyage in 1538, his career came to an abrupt end in the West Indies at the hands of the fierce Caribs. Unlike the Verrazzano voyages, those of Jacques Cartier, about a decade later, Cartier, about a decade later, led to the first French effort at colonization on 3 voyages. First one in 1534, second one was 1535 through 1536, and then the last that went through 1541 through 1542. Carter explored the Gulf of St. Lawrence and up the St. Lawrence River looking for the kingdom of Saguenay.
Saguenay? Yeah,
Saguenay. Another fantasy compound of European creed and Native Americans' tall tales. Twice he got as far as present Montreal, and twice wintered at or near the site of Quebec, near which a short-lived French colony appeared in 1542 through 1543. From the time forward, however, French kings lost interest in Canada. France, after mid-century, plunged into religious civil wars, and the colonization of Canada had to wait the coming of Samuel L. de Champlain. Champlain. He's French, so you gotta say that with
Champlain.
Yeah.
Champlain.
Yep. The father of New France.
Samuel
de Champlain. The father of New France after 1600. So France, from the mid 1500s forward, greater threats to Spanish power arose from the growing strength of the Dutch and English. The province of the Netherlands, which had passed by inheritance to the Spanish king, and which had become largely Protestant, rebelled against Spanish rule in 1567. A protracted and bloody struggle for independence was interrupted by a 12-year truce which ended the war in 1609 for a time, but Spain did not accept the independence of the Dutch Republic until 1648. Almost from the beginning of the revolt, the Dutch sea beggars, privateers working out of both English and Dutch ports, plundered Spanish ships in the Atlantic and carried on illegal trade with the Spanish colonies. The Dutch sea-beggars soon had their counterpart in the Elizabethan sea dodgies.
The what? Like, bro, that totally just sounded like Adam Sandler in that movie Bedtime Stories when his tongue gets stung by a bee, and he's like,
In the Elizabethan.
I'm good. Choking on most of it.
Being a sea dodgy, yeah. Sea dodgies.
Sea dogs.
Nope, sea doggies. Sea doggies. That's Gees.
Oh, my bad.
Mm-hmm. John Hawkins.
Bet you anything is pronounced sea dogs. Dogges.
It probably is pronounced sea dogs, but guess what?
Even Tyler's looking at you like, yeah, bro.
It's probably sea dogs.
But
It's
you know
sea
what?
dogs.
You know what? You know what? I'm a literal person, so I'm gonna read it how I see it.
Blame his speech impediments.
Mm-hmm. John Hawkins. Hawkins. That's another one.
Wait, Hawkins?
John Hawkins.
Hopkins.
Oh.
Hawkins.
No,
Hawkins?
Hawkins. Wait, John Hawkins. Treasure Island.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that another? And then with One Piece, the Fate Fortune guy.
Mm-hmm.
With the strong man.
Hawkins.
Oh, again, this is where.
And
Okay, I love it when One Piece goes back into play.
yeah,
and
you're gonna
stuff.
love this one too. Francis Drake.
No way.
The dinosaur, yes.
Our dino pirate.
And others, while Elizabeth steered a tortuous course to avoid open war with Catholic Spain, she encouraged both Dutch and English captains in smuggling and piracy. Sir John Hawkins, first of the Sea Dogs, got his start as a smuggler in 1562 when he picked up some 300 black slaves in Sierra Leone
Sierra Leone.
And traded them at a profit in
Hispaniola.
Hispaniola.
The what?
See.
Hispaniola.
See.
Yes.
It's Sierra Leone.
Sierra Leone.
Sierra Leone.
Sierra Leone.
You can say Leon just fine, but you can't say Leon.
What did you say, Leon? 2 years later, he took a cargo of the Spanish Main in Venezuela and Panama, a third voyage in 1567 to 1568. However, ended in disaster when a Spanish fleet surprised him at Veracruz. Only 2 of his 5 ships escaped, commanded respectively by Hawkins and his cousin, Francis Drake, whose exploits overshadowed his own.
Wait, Hawkins and Drake were cousins?
Yeah, in real life.
Bro!
Drake now abandoned the precedence of legal trade and set out to loot Spanish treasure. In 1577, he embarked in the Golden Hind on the famous adventure around South America to raid Spanish towns along the Pacific and surprise a treasure ship from Peru, continuing in a vain search for a passage back to the Atlantic. He was driven out to sea. He was close with the American coast at about 43 degrees north and spent 7 weeks at Drake's Bay in New Albany, as he called California. Eventually, he found his way westward around the world and back home in 1580.
New what?
New Albany.
Where is it?
Albion?
Anyone that has ever played Fable knows what that is.
That's Albion.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't play Fable.
Albion! Again, this is where
Y'all
our
were
video
Xbox
games.
players,
Oh,
PlayStation.
dude, even our video
I'm about
games.
to say,
bring
blame
this full
Microsoft, don't
circle.
blame me.
Oh, there's a little
You should
sprinkle
play
of
Fable one
truth.
day.
I already got other games that's just like Fable, though.
There's nothing just like Fable.
There's nothing like Fable though. Fable's awesome. I gave the Xbox the red ring of death once because I played Fable for so long.
Yeah, no.
It's also got a lot of like symbolism in it too.
Yep, like Albion. Apparently Albion used to exist. I didn't know that. That's where, again, our movies, our TV shows, our music, and our video games, all of our sources of entertainment these days, guys, like, they give us sprinkles of truth of everything in it. Like, the more and more that I have the ears to listen and the eyes to see, the more I can hear and see.
But eventually, he found his way westward. around the world. And back home in 1580, Elizabeth, who had secretly backed the voyage, shared a profit of 4,600%. 4,600%. And knighted Sir Francis upon his return.
Plus Ultra! 4,000%! My level's on 4,000!
One more. Just
Come on, we're all Dragon Ball Z fans in here.
Power levels over 9,000.
I know. But you didn't get the reference.
I did.
But why no reactions, boys?
I smiled.
I'm too busy soaking in this history right now.
He's basking in the glory of history.
Mm-hmm. But I believe I'm gonna read this one last little segment right here about the Armada's defeat.
Mm-hmm.
Such depredations. Predations. I cannot.
Depredations.
Depredations.
Such depredations continued for some 20 years before circumstances finally provoked open war. In 1568, Elizabeth's cousin, Mary, Queen of Scots, ousted by Scottish Presbyterians.
Wait, okay, but when we look at who was who and born, so there's two Mary the Firsts?
No, it's the same Mary. What are you talking about? You're legitimately trying to converse into a show with history. We're jumping forward into the show. We're jumping forward from the show. Because she got ousted by Scottish Presbyterians in favor of her infant son. They wanted the son to run, not her, from what I'm understanding right now.
Oh.
Fled to refuge in England. Mary, who was Catholic, had a claim to the English throne by descent from Henry VIII. From Henry VII. And was it Henry VII or Henry VIII?
It was Henry VIII.
That's what makes them cousins. Brothers. They're not.
Brothers.
They're not.
Oh.
You're right. Yeah. So yeah.
No, maybe Dad, because Henry how you pass on the numbers is through sons. So that's father son.
But would that also make her Queen Mary Henry VIII's great aunt then?
Yes.
Okay. And what would that make Elizabeth to Queen Mary then?
Silver cousin.
Not sisters.
But man, when you have the bloodline confused like that, it's a little hard to keep track, because if you look at it one way, it's like, oh, they're really half sisters, and then you look at it the other way, it's like, oh wait, no, well, maybe they're cousins.
Blame royalty blood and them trying to be pure.
Yeah, the incestuous bloodlines.
Scottish Presbyterians, in favor of her infant son, fled to refuge in England. Mary, who was Catholic, had a claim to the English throne by descent from Henry VII, and soon became the focus for Spanish Catholic intrigues to overthrow Elizabeth. Finally, after an abortive plot to kill Elizabeth and elevate Mary to the throne, the Queen yielded to the demands of her ministries and had Mary beheaded in 1587. In revenge, Philip II decided to crush once and for all the Protestant power of the North and began to gather his ill-fated armada, whereupon Francis Drake swept upon Cadiz and destroyed part of the fleet before it was ready. His signing of the King of Spain beard postponed for a year the departure of the Invincible Armada, which set out in 1588. From the beginning,
In his
singeing of the King of Spain's beard postponed for a year the departure of the Invincible Armada, which set out in 1588. From the beginning, it was cease of incompetence and mismanagement compounded by bad luck. The Spanish idea of naval warfare was to bring rival ships together for what in effect was an infantry battle at sea. The heavy Spanish galleons, however, could not cope with the smaller and faster English vessels, commanded by Drake and others. The English hurried the Spanish ships through the English Channel on their way to the Netherlands, where the Armada was to pick up an army of invasion, but caught up in a powerful persistent wind from the south. The storm-tossed fleet never got there. It was swept into the North Sea instead and was left on its finale found into the North Sea instead, and what was finally left of it finally found its way home around the British Isles, leaving wreckage scattered on the shores of Scotland and Ireland.
Alright, so let's stop right there. So that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments from our guest over there?
War!
War, what is it good for?
Absolutely nothing.
What's it good for? Freedom, I guess.
Yeah, but who's fighting for freedom here? It just seems like they're fighting for
power.
Power.
Yeah.
The Game of Thrones, per se.
Well, this is before before the idea of freedom was never corresponded. Only little plot seeds. It's gotta start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
This is back when they were using nothing but religion for war as well, and excuses to go to war.
Mm-hmm.
And just to conquer more land.
Mm-hmm. In the name of Christ. Sadly. But...
And by the power of God, in the name of Christ, the power of God, because we have to remember that back in those days, if you were chosen to, if you were of a chosen royal family, then you were, quote, what? Chosen by God, right? You're the royal bloodline of God. So, yes, religion in a spiritual sense as well as a physical sense was something to go to war for in those days.
You also already see the corruption of religion coming back all the way back in that day where the king reassigned a new pope just so he could get something done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like I said, the past is very bloody and very confusing because of who's who. What's actually going on. Because like I said, we're jumping back and forth to the Spanish Empire, to the English Kingdom, and then over there to Italy, and then down to Portugal. Like, we're really setting up a playfield of all the powers that play right now that made the New World. Because whether we like it or not, these events did shape what we have today.
Mm-hmm. Made us what we are now.
The defeat of the Armada marked the beginning of English supremacy on the sea. So this is what pretty much what gave England the power of North America, is when we destroyed the Spanish Armada, because they had England had smaller ships as opposed to Spanish big, great, giant ships. And cleared the way for English colonization. It was the climactic event of Elizabeth's reign, and it brought to a crescendo the surging patriotism that had been born of the epic conflict with Spain. The great literature of the Elizabethan age reflected a spirit of confidence and pride. The historical plays of William Shakespeare especially celebrated the glories of the House of Tudor and linked them to the spirit of the nation. This blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England was in the springtime of her power, filled with a youthful zest for new worlds and new wonders that were opening up before the nation. And with that, I'm going to end the episode. Not end the episode, but stop reading.
So that would have been the start of England's rise of their navy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And why they're so known for having such a good navy at this point.
Yes. Because it wasn't.
And we have two pirates to thank for that appear within One Piece, and they are captains of their own ships, of their own right. We have Mr. John Hawkins and Sir Francis Drake.
Named literally that?
Named literally those in the anime as well. Mr. Ichiro Oda, like we've come to realize, really did do his homework on all the pirates. Like, yeah, the pirates might have their weird devil fruit powers, but their backgrounds, how they are, the kinds of ships they command, whether they are captains or not captains, it all checks out.
Really quite interesting, honestly. So, I'm going to guess the next chapter is we're going to be more on the English side and see how that course of history went on through.
Yep, moving away from the Spanish explorations and expeditions and how that all developed, and then how they pretty much got swindled by the English, and now we're going to learn about English's rise to power over, well, not just land, but now sea as well.
It wasn't necessarily swindled. Spain
I feel like it was swindled because Queen Elizabeth had, Drake and Hawkins causing terror with the Spanish and committing piracy with the Spanish. So that's where I feel like that was a bunch of swindle.
That was England's part of it, but you also got to realize France's part into it too, with the Protestants and infiltrating the Spanish colonies, and pretty much providing civil unrest. Yeah.
And it's why we have the whole thing with Mary Queen of Scots.
Mm-hmm. And why she got beheaded, because she wanted the throne, and Elizabeth's like, yeah, no.
Well, Elizabeth didn't want to, but she had no choice but to listen to her court cabinet, who were like, look, if you don't kill her, then that's just going to give the green light for her to come back and, behead you at some point. Just like the show says, and that's why Elizabeth was like, alright, fine, behead her.
What an interesting place.
And I think they also killed Mary's son, I believe, as well, because he also was a threat to the English throne.
Because also, remember, this book also says that England religious aspects weren't perfect neither, and that's what set up for the Pilgrims to go on the Mayflower. They just told us it was foreshadowing.
Yep. Pretty much. So, yeah. Now we're going to get into the parts next week about how the Pilgrims all decided to get together and ship off to another place.
Mm-hmm. Going to be a lot of interesting reads. A lot of fun facts.
So we're getting close to the formation of America.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of almost catching up to where we are right now in our Constitution segments.
Talking about Prussia. Which Prussia might have been Spain.
Mm-hmm. About how the British and, Prussia, in this satire piece that Benjamin Franklin had written, Prussia owns England now, and, well, with all this, the people of England, they can't manufacture their own clothes, they can't manufacture their own hats, they can't manufacture their own steel, they can't manufacture their own iron, they can't manufacture any stone tools on their own, they have to ship everything to Prussia, and then Prussia, they not only ship everything to Prussia, but they pay Prussia to make the things that they want them made out of, and then they have to buy it back once those items are bought. So it's kind of like triple paying.
It's a triple threat. Triple threat.
Yeah. And not only that, but if you have your own personal business where you are allowed under the decree of the Prussian king to manufacture your own within your town, you can only have 2 apprentices. If you have more than 2 apprentices, then, well, you're going to get fined for that. And also, not only with the limit of 2 apprentices, if you end up having the most popular hat shop in all the land, well, you can't expand your shop. You gotta have your hat production, to keep up, be sold off to
Prussia.
And then you buy back your stock.
Or like triple the cost.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. So, yeah, it was a foreshadow and a forewarning, a red herring tale for our young American colonies that Benjamin Franklin wrote up.
Trying to get the uprise for the people.
And we went from 1722 to where that edict was written, the edict for the King of Prussia, where we just explained all that, to 1773. So, like 3 years before our Declaration of Independence was signed. So now our forefathers are 60-something years old. And they see what's coming. And with that, we're gonna close the episode off. What did you find the most interesting? Leave your questions or comments in the comment section down below. And as always, we always have a copy of the book in the links description in the description box below. And maybe next time we'll have our friend Tyler come on again. So everybody give him a round of applause for coming on the show today.
Ta-da!
Da-da-da-da. And And as we always say, we're going to leave you with our famous slogan, live life with eyes wide open. And we'll see you on the next one.